Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the September user group. It's great to have you with us. We'll get the show on the road now. We can see there's still a few more people logging in, but we've got quite a bit to get through today, so let's get started. So today's user group is all about Q&A or QandA. There's a television program here in Australia and also in New Zealand called Q&A. Robust discussions in democracy, I think it stands for, not stands for, but is the premise of the show. So we thought we'd hand it over to you to give the questions today. So thank you for everybody who submitted questions. Hopefully we've managed to get through all of those and provide you with some answers today. So let's get started. I just wanted to see if I could indulge you for a few moments. We had a pretty significant event take place last week in San Francisco. Our CEO and co-founder, Addon, attended the Oracle Open World Conference. And at that conference, Marketing Cube was awarded Partner of the Year for CX Marketing across Asia Pac. As you would imagine, we're pretty thrilled to receive that award and that recognition from Oracle. So big thank you to the team at Oracle, but also a big thank you to you customers as well for your enthusiasm in relation to what we're trying to achieve as a team in helping you. So thanks again. And you'll probably see a little bit more of that branding as we go across the following months. Something for us to talk about clearly. So my name is Derek Bell. I'm your host today. I look after customer success and marketing at Marketing Cube. And we've also got Jason O'Donnell, one of our account directors, on the line as well. So Jason helps out with questions and providing you with some answers. So if you have more questions in above and beyond the ones that you've submitted today, please use the chat function within the platform, within Zoom, to get those through. And Jason will jump on those and we'll get to those as well if we can throughout the course of the day. Okay, so what's on the agenda for today? So normally we cover sort of 3 different topics and then give you a bit of an update on what's happening in the world of Eloqua. Today though, really it's all about these questions. So we'll just give you a little bit of an overview, jump straight into the questions, look at those answers, and then give you a little bit of an update on point 3 there towards the end of today's webinar. So there were a wide-ranging number of questions that were asked, and we've done our best to try and answer all of those as much as possible, also within the time frame that we have to spend with you today. So if there's still additional questions beyond today's webinar, please be sure to reach out to us. But let's have a close look at some of those questions sort of at a high level. So essentially, there are a few questions in relation to data privacy, which included GDPR. We have some questions that the answer will be FTP, or file transfer protocols. We have questions around heat maps for email, some insight reporting to help in relation to inclusion and exclusion of hyperlinks, most commonly the unsubscribe hyperlink. Then managing segments, a little bit around CRM integration and accounts and what can happen there. And there were a few questions also about getting spam bots, so trying to ensure that we don't get spam bots filling in forms, etc. So let's jump straight in and get straight into those questions. So the idea was to grab a cup of coffee or your lunch, depending on where you are in the world, and let's get straight into them. So first one came from Maggie in the Philippines. So thank you, Maggie, for submitting your question. Now, Maggie, I know you're not a very new user to Eloqua, but I still appreciate the question. So do you have resources where beginners like myself can access tutorials for the basic functions and capabilities of Eloqua, like a Eloqua for Dummies guide, perhaps? So look, I actually did some Googling, and no one has actually published an Eloqua for Dummies, and I'm sure you've done exactly the same thing. So it gave me some ideas about maybe some things I could start to write, maybe get published as a Eloqua for Dummies author. We'll see where that goes. But there are a range of resources available to help you, Maggie, and to help any of the team there in the Philippines. So the first one, of course, is the user group, and you're doing that right now. So thank you for joining us. That's a big tick. The other one is the Oracle Eloqua Help Center, and this is accessible from within Eloqua. And there's also a number of areas within the Help Center where you can do some self-guided training. So I'll dive in there in just a second and show you. In addition, for new users and even more seasoned users, there's the recent addition of the in-app guidance that we've seen added to Eloqua in the editors and also on the campaign canvas. Now, the other one that you may or may not be aware of is the Oracle Launchpad, which is free Oracle Cloud training. So that covers the whole suite of Oracle Cloud solutions, of which Eloqua is just one of those. So that's another great place to go. Also, YouTube. Now, when you go to YouTube and you look for Eloqua, there's two channels that you may find. One of them is geared more towards selling Eloqua. So it's lots of customers with happy testimonials, talking about the product, et cetera, et cetera. There's another one, though, which is the Help Center YouTube channel, which is very much designed for customers who are using Eloqua today. So there's a few options there for you. Let me just quickly dive into Eloqua and show you or remind you how to get to the Help Center. So the Help Center is available in many locations in Eloqua, but the most common one is to access it in the top right-hand corner of the screen. And so from the top right-hand corner of the screen, you'll access the Help Center. And once we get to the Help Center, there's a few things you can do. You can search by keyword, so you can type in whatever you need at this point and search for things. But under the big green button called Get Started, you'll find a range of different things to help certainly new users. And this is a really great place to start. So you'll see there are some videos, and many of these different areas within the Help Center contain videos. And those videos are actually sourced from the YouTube channel, the Help Center YouTube channel. So for example, let's have a look. So down here, getting started for marketers. So if you're looking to build your first email, for example, this will actually take you on a bit of a self-guided learning path, is one way to describe it. And what it will do is by the end of this particular module, you will have created an email. So it tells you what you'll learn, what you'll need, and then off you go to step one. And so you'll find a whole suite of those modules. The nice thing about them is they contain great screenshots. So you're not just reading copy, but you've got lots of illustrations to help you there and tips as you go through the process. So I think you'll find that a great place to start for any new users to the platform. So again, encourage you to go to the Help Center, which is probably the best place to go for new users. Topliners, which you may have heard of, Topliners is the online community for Eloqua users, but that's more of a discussion type of platform where people can pose questions and the community will respond to those particular questions. But for new users, this is probably the best place for them to start. So hopefully that answers your question. All right, next question. So this one actually came up a few times from a couple of people. We have a Lodi from New Zealand. And the question is, can Eloqua read off a spreadsheet and update contact data if the spreadsheet is hosted outside the system? And the answer is yes. So there was another question similar to this one from Steve and Co. I'll say Steve and Co. In Australia. So they've got a weekly report that we currently manually upload as a segment each week as part of an ongoing campaign canvas. So is there a way to email an Excel list to Eloqua and have it uploaded, automatically uploaded to a segment? So the answer to that specific question is no, but what you propose next, Steve, is the answer. So alternatively, can you talk us through the FTP upload feature of Eloqua and how it can upload new contacts from an Excel file from the FTP? Can these new contacts be auto-assigned to a segment in Canvas? So let's have a look at the answer. So if the file you want to upload on a regular basis is the same each time, that's the critical piece. As long as it's the same each time, then setting up an FTP solution is a good solution. So the way that works, Steve, essentially is that Eloqua would make a call at a regular basis to a defined server. Now, the best case scenario is that that's a secure server that you have hosted within the business. Now, Marketing Cube has secure servers and we can host them, but obviously that comes at a cost. So if there's a server that you have, the secure server that you have, that can host that Excel file on a regular basis, then Eloqua can automatically make a call out to that particular server. Now, there are some customers who use FTP on a very regular basis. So for instance, for many of you that might be using Oracle Sales Cloud or Oracle Engagement Cloud or Salesforce or NetSuite or Microsoft Dynamics, those particular CRM platforms have existing integration apps that allow the two systems to talk. However, if you have a more bespoke CRM platform that at least is cloud-based, but not one of the above ones that I just mentioned, then sometimes setting up FTP is an economical way to do it. And so essentially what you're doing is you're setting up a schedule and you're telling Eloqua, okay, Eloqua, at 9 a.m. every day, or maybe it's 3 a.m. every day, or maybe it's every hour, whatever the schedule is that you set up, Eloqua then makes a call out to the hosted server, picks up the Excel file, brings it into Eloqua, and then manipulates that data to largely do whatever you kind of needed it to do. Now, as long as there are email addresses associated to those people, the nice thing is you're not going to end up with duplicates. So that's always a good thing. And Eloqua can then update the relevant information within the platform, saving you having to do it on a manual basis. So, Steve, if you've got further questions on that particular one, what I'd encourage you to do is to shoot an email to either Jason or to support@marketingcube.com.au, and we can give you a little bit of an idea as to what that would cost to set up, provide you with some guidance if you wanted to do it, whichever. So have a chat with Jason and he'll be able to assist you with that. So thank you guys for that question. That's actually a very common application we find many Eloqua customers use is FTP as a way to automate getting some data into Eloqua, especially even customers that have any of those CRM systems that I talked about. In some cases, they have data from older systems or external systems, etc., and they just need some way to automate the process. And so FTP generally considered the safe and a good way to do that. So Steve, I hope that answers your question. Just on that topic though, I thought it was worthwhile just sharing with you some functionality that exists within Eloqua that you may or may not be aware of. Now, if you are uploading data manually to Eloqua and via Excel, there are some other tools available to help sort of speed that process for you. The key to speeding the process is that the source data, your Excel file, is identical each time. So the rows and columns, well, not the rows, but the column headings are identical each time. And if that's the case, you can speed the process. The other thing that I'd really encourage you to do is when you upload that data to Eloqua is to always include lead source information. I appreciate there may be contacts and not leads, but the construct of lead source is really helping you understand the origin of the data. As an example, I had a call from a CMO last year, and she shared with me that they had something about, I think it was 12 or 15,000 contacts sitting in Eloqua that had been manually uploaded over a period of time, but they had absolutely no idea where they'd come from. Had these people opted in? How did they get into the system? Did an Excel spreadsheet fall off the back of a bus and just get picked up? They had absolutely no idea. So when you are adding information or new contacts into the system, take advantage of the lead source original and lead source most recent fields. Now, the way they work, as long as you have them configured correctly, is the lead source original field will only ever populate once. However, the lead source most recent field will update every single time data is loaded into the system. The idea is the value that you put in both of those fields is identical. It's just the way Eloqua manages that data when it hits those two fields that will differ. And so that would then put you in a much stronger position to understand exactly where those people came from. Now, if you put a GDPR umbrella over the top of that, that's a pretty critical step. So let me just show you quickly, when you're uploading information to Eloqua, most of you will be familiar, if you've done manual uploads to the system, you're at the contact screen, you click on the upload button, this particular window will pop up. I'd encourage you to put in a name. Eloqua requires a unique name, so that's why it automatically generates one, but that's pretty useless to you and means absolutely nothing. So put in a name that makes sense to you so that you know exactly what you're doing. As with the upload wizard, you kind of work through a process with that one through to step 2. You now validate the data and the information that's sitting in the Excel spreadsheet. Step 3 requires you to do the mapping. So the source field, the Excel file and the column headings within the Excel file. And the target field is the Eloqua contact and what's going on there. So that's how you map the fields. And then the final step, and this is the tip that you may or may not have been aware of, notice this section at the bottom here where it says save as a preset. And it does say in brackets, this computer only. So what happens there is when you select that option, Eloqua drops some cookies directly onto your drive. Now, keeping in mind, as I said, this is your computer only, your physical computer. So if you're doing work at home and work at the office, and they're two separate pieces of hardware, well, that won't work. It'll only work on one of them. So what it does, it saves all the configuration, and basically you go from step 1 in the wizard to step 4. I said it just skips that whole mapping process for you because it's hardwired in, because the Excel file is identical each time. So that can just save you a little bit of time as you go through that process. And always a good idea to create a shared list of that information, if for no other reason than to have that last group of people you've uploaded into the platform, have them grouped together so you can see them and validate the upload and the data and all that kind of stuff. So just some tips there to help you on that one. So this one comes from Emma in New Zealand, and thank you, Emma, for submitting your question. Managing segments. So if segment members are added at different times to the same segment, how can we report on the different groups separately? Good question. So let me just think this one through a little bit. So if we visualize the campaign canvas with a single segment, and that segment is dynamic, meaning that you've set a schedule for that segment to refresh maybe once an hour or once a day potentially, and different people from different sources will enter Eloqua and then enter your campaign. The key, Emma, I think, to answering that question for you is to look at the setup of the campaign from day one. So if you're wanting to achieve reporting based on various segments, the key is to start your campaign with the same various segments. So today, I get the impression from your question, what you're probably doing is having a single segment, in this example, group A, going directly into your first email. Versus if you wanted to be able to look at different segments, I'd encourage you to create those additional segments from the outset. Now, it may be that from the instance when you initially launch the campaign that you anticipate there'll be a group of people, but you don't have any today. So how do you accommodate that group? Okay, that's not too hard. Essentially, you create a segment. Now, you can't put a segment on the canvas and activate it if it's empty. There must be at least one contact sitting in that particular segment. So in this example, that perhaps could be you, Emma. You could put yourself into that segment of 1 because today you don't have anybody that fits the criteria for that one, but you will potentially moving forward. Or you may want to have a segment sitting there on the campaign where you know in the future, in the life of your campaign, you may want to manually add people to that particular one versus group A and B, which may be automated based on filters from the segment. So hopefully that answers your question in relation to that process. Now, the nice side about doing that as well, Emma, is when you go through the dashboards and look at your reporting from an email point of view, you'll see those individual segments actually broken down. Let me just quickly see if I can replicate that for you. Hang on just 1 minute. So off to dashboards. So under campaign performance, what I need to do is come at the email with multiple segments going into the email. Essentially, when you look at the various emails within dashboards, let's grab one, actually, the confirmation email. Let's have a look at that one. But this is where you would see it, Emma. So if in your example, you have a campaign where you have one email sitting on the canvas and multiple groups going into that particular email, then you would see them broken down. You can see segment performance that is listed right here. And you'll see the detail broken out then as to how those individual groups are engaging with the relevant content. So again, under email performance, you'll be able to see that information. So hopefully that answers your question, or at least gives you a bit more guidance as to how you might do that. That was just to emphasize again the dynamic nature of the segment. So making sure we use the add members regularly until the campaign is deactivated step. Okay, so Josh. Yeah, Josh, thanks for the encouragement. Is Josh on the line? Yep, Josh is on the line. So yeah, no, I assure you that wasn't photoshopping, Josh, but I appreciate the feedback. So we use landing page subscription center for unsubscribers, and we struggle to easily get reporting on our campaigns as the out-of-the-box reports do not measure the landing page, and the click-through rate in the report is inflated by those clicking on the unsubscribe link. So of course the frustration there is too many people clicking on the unsubscribe link, so we need to work on that. but it would be great to show us some reporting tips for simple campaign measurement, send, open, CTR, and unsubs. Now, for the purposes of today's webinar, I probably need to give you a call, Josh, and go into a bit more detail specifically on your scenario. But one of the tips that I thought we could extract from this is something that would help the whole team as well as you, hopefully. So the answer would be to go to Analyzer, because there isn't anything native within the predefined reports that meets that criteria. So one of the first things that you're going to want to do is to identify the URL that is the unsubscribe link. Now, in this example, I've just gone through our system and found an email where I had an unsubscribe. Therefore, when I look at the report, I see the link. So in this case, I've used the email click-through link breakdown report. And you can see there are various links contained in that particular report. And the one that I've highlighted there is the unsubscribe link. Now that is obviously unique to every instance of Eloqua, so yours will obviously be unique to you. Then what I've done from there is I went into Analyzer and I created a custom report. So I actually started with this report, and then I went through the process of excluding that URL from any of the reports. So to validate that process, what I did is ran 2 reports, both over the last 12 months, just to see if the numbers were impacted. So I ran one native report for email click-through link breakdown for the last 12 months, and I got thousands at the bottom was the total. I then used the custom report, which essentially is this report with the addition of me telling Insight to exclude that particular link from the report. And that particular report was hundreds less. So it showed me, just validated that, that the logic I applied to the Insight report had in fact worked. So it's a matter of creating a report using Analyzer. So as you know, Analyzer is now a free service. Anybody within the Eloqua community can access Analyzer. It just needs to be assigned to them from a reporting point of view, sorry, user profile point of view in the back end of Eloqua. So that would be my suggestion to you as a starting point. But just given the unique arrangement and setup of your instance of Eloqua, Josh, it probably would be worthwhile having a chat with Thomas, or I'm happy to jump on a call maybe with the 3 of us, and we can work out the best solution to get that done for you. So hopefully that answers your question, and hopefully that also helps other users as well to identify potentially how they could also do that. Now, once you create that report using the Analyzer license, you can obviously then save that report, and then that could be the default report that people in the organization go to when they want to look at email activity and click-throughs, but exclude unsubscribes from the overall behavior. So hopefully that answers your question. Now, this one came from Wayne in the US, and Wayne asked a fairly sophisticated question. Thank you, Wayne, for the question. So this data privacy add-on must be enabled. Obviously, it has to be purchased as well, but it needs to be enabled. So either anyone here at Marketing Cube or your Oracle representative can help you with that. You must also have secure microsites in order to have the environment configured. You probably need somebody who knows what they're doing. So a fairly experienced administrator, or obviously a member of the Marketing Cube support team could assist you. And the configuration, I'd probably say takes about a day. This is sort of a copy and paste from the help center. 3 hours, that's just the configuration, but that doesn't include any of the look and feel. So from a branding point of view, getting your look and feel on that process. But essentially what this is, it's a tool that people potentially within financial services or those potentially in medical services. So where you've got sensitive data that is private by nature, essentially what you do is you set up an email group. Once you actually add this add-on, it automatically creates an email group for you. And so any communications that you need to send that would contain data that is private in nature, then you can use this particular email group to do that, which then includes access to and eliminates the ability to share personal information in emails. So I believe there's also a custom object that is set up, which is where that personal information is kept. So you might think about things like, dates of birth, medical history, maybe financial information in relation to investments or policies or various products that you might have. You may have a need to share that information, which would all be unique information, hence the custom data object, with many individuals, etc. Now, also tied into that whole add-on with Eloqua is also user controls and visibility. So not all users within a platform necessarily have access to that information. User access is driven through the profiles, and the data privacy add-on adds that level of functionality to the platform. Now, unfortunately, Wayne, you had asked, would it be possible to see a demo? I'm sorry, that would be a little bit too much in the stretch to try and do in this format. But I'd encourage you, Wayne, have a chat with the product development team, and I'm sure they will be able to answer your questions further. There was extensive information available in the Help Center though, and you did share a link. There is more available there. So I'd encourage you to jump in and have a look at some of those. On that same topic of data privacy, there was a GDPR question that came in from Sebastian in Vietnam. So in his world, the company appears to be based in Vietnam, but with an office in Paris. So that means they have a registered entity within the European Union, and which means then that they need to comply with GDPR for any European citizens or EU citizens that they may be communicating with. So, Sebastian, there are a range of ways that Eloqua can help you do this. And when was it? March 2018. So March last year, we hosted a webinar on this very topic, which we called GDPR in a nutshell. What we did here was do quite a bit of research to really provide some answers to Eloqua customers to help them understand what was available. So in a nutshell, hence the name of the white paper, if you hold or create a custom data object within Eloqua, that custom data object can be automatically populated with information about an individual, and specifically personal information that is personally identifiable, I think is the language within the GDPR. So that would be information, obviously, like first name, last name, probably home address, phone numbers, maybe date of birth, clearly the date that they opted in to your system, and if there is an opt-out date as well. So all of that information can be stored on the custom data object. Now, the reason you want it on the custom data object is because you need to keep a history of it. However, on the contact, you don't get to keep the history. So if somebody opts out and opts in and opts out and opts in, you'll only, on the contact, all you'll see is the most recent level of information. And remember, digital body language stored within Eloqua, as in email opens, click-throughs, those sorts of things, is only held by Eloqua for 2 years. Whereas once you stick that information or post that information to a custom object, custom data object within Eloqua, it's there forever. The other nice piece in relation to the benefits of the custom data object, Sebastian, is that you can go into the custom data object and export that information very quickly. The other requirement for the GDPR is the fact that you have to be able to do that. A citizen of the EU is meant to be able to email you and request their personal information be shared with them within a reasonable time frame. And generally, from what I could read in the legislation, that's 24 hours. And the other nice thing is it has to be delivered in a format that the person can open. And when you export information from a custom data object, you can export it in Excel. Certainly a universal platform that 99.9% of people on the planet can open. So certainly that will help. Now you'll find information on our website. If you just simply go to our blog and do a keyword search in our blog for GDPR, you'll see a few resources there. You'll find the white paper. You'll also find a link to watch the replay of that webinar that was hosted last year as well, which might give you a little bit more information. So hopefully that answers your question. Now, from Candace in Australia. So thank you, Candace. Sounds like you're exploring. So can you expand on Eloqua's CRM abilities and how it integrates with other systems, advantages, disadvantages? This sounds like a whole demo that you're asking me to do here, Candace, so I can't do that, but I bullet pointed some answers and hopefully we can help you with that one. As for the last one, what is best practice? Well, I'm always a bit hesitant to throw that word around, but we can certainly share with you some ideas as to a more effective way to do something that will give you a better solution at the end of the day. So if we want to call that best practice, that's fine. All right, so first thing, I suppose the first key thing to get across, Eloqua is not a CRM. So let's not think about Eloqua as a CRM. You can't record activities, you can't record notes. It doesn't behave like a CRM, but it integrates beautifully to CRMs. And so that's where the magic sort of comes into the picture. It's the depth of the integration that really sets it apart from similar platforms. So whether you're connecting to Oracle Sales Cloud, Oracle Engagement Cloud, Salesforce, CRM, NetSuite, any of those other type of mainstream CRM platforms, then the depth of integration is superb. So in relation to unique information, that's where the custom data objects come in. So if we think about logging into our CRM and we look typically at objects within the CRM as leads, accounts, opportunities, maybe campaigns, etc. These are all different objects within the CRM platform. And so at a very basic level, what we bring over to Eloqua generally is the lead object, the contact object, and the account object, which creates the link between all of those people to an account or business entity. In addition to that, though, you may have very custom objects that you've built. And these objects, depending on your business, let's take an example. Let's say I'm a not-for-profit organization and I'm running a membership-based organization. So you would most likely have an object in your CRM that would be called membership. And in there, you would have different levels of membership. You would have history of renewals. If membership is on an annual basis, you would also have payment information. You would have credit card details, not that they should be visible in any sense. They should all be tokenized. And there'd be a range of other pieces that you would have. So that would be incredibly helpful for the marketing team to be able to see that information. So Candace, it's the ability of Eloqua's really robust custom object feature or custom data objects. Those two words are used simultaneously or interchangeably, by the way. Custom objects, custom data objects, same thing. So that's really what would separate Eloqua, I think, from many other platforms. And we have many people, I'm just looking down the list of folks who are on the call today. There are many people here who are taking advantage of custom objects within their relevant instances of Eloqua. And also, yeah, there's multiple people on the call today who have various CRM platforms that they're connected to as well. So best practice, I suppose, you don't reinvent the wheel. The challenge, I wrote a blog post about 5 years ago on this one. Basically, we're not as special or as unique as we think we are. Companies like Oracle, Salesforce, SAP, others over the years have spent literally billions of dollars developing platforms that are flexible enough to be perfect for just about any sort of business. And if we constantly rehash and redesign and make these bespoke systems, then we're really putting ourselves behind the 8 ball. So it boggles my mind as to why somebody would want to build their own CRM system. And today, I don't know, it just doesn't make a lot of commercial sense. But if you go with systems like those from the large software companies, obviously Oracle, Eloqua, and others, you have the beauty of being able to connect those systems very simply at a lower cost than having a bespoke system that creates a lot more difficulty over time. There's, are there APIs? Are they open? Can I access them? Is it even in the cloud or is it on premise? All those sorts of things. But at the end of the day, when it comes to integrating your CRM platform with Eloqua, once that happens, we need to always think of the CRM as the source of truth. And I've said there for people data. By that, I mean prospect data, customer data, business partners, whatever sorts of folks you're keeping information on in your CRM. The CRM is the source of truth. Eloqua is the source of truth from the concept of email opens, click-through, form submissions, website visits, all that sort of stuff. But the CRM should be the source of truth in relation to their name, all that information, their phone numbers, connection to accounts, connection to campaigns, opportunities, all that sort of stuff really should sit within the CRM. So hopefully, Candace, that answers your question. Now, on the same line of thinking from Remy in Australia. So hi, Remy. You asked in relation to custom data objects. So hopefully we've already talked but the reason I put your question a little bit further down here was because we already talked a little bit about those. But you do ask two questions: how to use accounts and link them to contact records, and then also best practice. And there's that word again, best practice. Best practice in using custom data objects to keep track of all interactions. So I left you a voicemail yesterday, Remy. Maybe you didn't get a chance to listen to that. I wanted to ask you a little bit more information about what you mean by interactions. You do say, for example, manual upload of leads. Let me dive into the answer and see if this helps. So there's two things. The account. So the account construct within Eloqua is used to identify a business entity of some sort. So it's not about a human, it's about a business entity, or an organization is probably a better use of the term, because it could be a university, it could be a government department, it could be a not-for-profit foundation, or it could be a commercial enterprise, but it's an account, is what Eloqua sees that as. So you can create linkages between the two, and the way you do that is a few ways. So you can automate the process, and the most common way of automating the process would be through a CRM autosync. So that relationship is already defined in the CRM system. So you have Derek, who works at Marketing Cube, and you know he works at Marketing Cube because he is associated to an account within the CRM called Marketing Cube. And so the auto sync between the CRM and Eloqua brings that information into Eloqua. The upside for you as the marketer is you're able to then, and I'm hoping you're also reading on the screen while I'm talking, Remy, you're able to then go into segments, for example, and say to Eloqua, bring back everybody who works at Marketing Cube, because that's an account. So it's an account field, and it'll bring back all of the accounts. Also, a more likely scenario is that you wanted to maybe focus on industry. So you could say to Eloqua, give me all accounts that have the industry, financial services or higher education, whatever it might be, and it'll bring back all contacts that are associated to an account that is in that industry. So it certainly enables you to do a little bit more granular segmentation using account data in that process. Now, how do you actually combine the two? Let's have a look at the next slide. So the specific question you had there, Remy, was how do I create the link essentially between them? So in this example, and this is actually taken directly from the, I started to write this out and then I found this in the help center. So I've just copied and pasted. So the key here, and this can be a challenge to try and do manually, hence the reason for maybe an FTP synchronization to a source system or using integration. Now, if I remember correctly, Remy, there's integration in your world with Oracle Sales Cloud or Oracle Engagement Cloud, I think it is. So this should automatically be done for you. If you're doing it manually, it can be a bit tricky though. You see highlighted there in red, the points are that if the field on the contact says Acme Corp, the field on the account must also say exactly Acme Corp. Now, if somebody fills in something and calls it Acme Corporation, or they just simply call it Acme, there will be no link between the two. So that's where with a CRM integration, you're using a unique identifier typically. So there would be an account ID. Account ID would be linked to multiple contacts who are connected to that particular account. And the bold point there at the bottom, as always, it's pivotal that the values in your records are accurate. If the values aren't accurate, then it gets to be a little bit of a challenge. But account information is incredibly helpful. Now, the other question you asked in relation to custom data objects and sort of best use cases for those and why you would do it. So as we've talked a little bit about already today, custom data objects are very much about when you have one-to-many type of relationships from a data point of view. So when you look at my contact in Eloqua and you see first name and the field is populated with the value of Derek, that is a one-to-one relationship. I only have one name or one first name, and that happens to be Derek. However, over the course of my relationship with you, I could have multiple pieces of information if you consider things like opportunities. If I'm studying at university, I could have multiple profiles depending on which courses that I'm doing. So course history and course completion history would be good because there would be multiple courses that I would do, not just simply one. Even if I did one, we would still store that information on a custom data object. Product purchase history, warranty information, campaign membership. If I'm a not-for-profit charity or a membership-based organization of some sort, membership profile information would be incredibly helpful as well. Service history. So in the automotive industry, the ability to store service history or access, not store, but access service history of a vehicle could be helpful from a marketing point of view, and webinar attendance, something like we're all doing today. For instance, you would attend multiple editions of these webinars over time, and so we want to be able to store those against a single profile. So the way Eloqua does that, the connection point from the Eloqua contact to the Eloqua custom data object is using the email address. So the email address is the unique identifier that connects the information from the contact to the custom data object where multiple records are stored. So Remy, I hope that answers your question. I do see one question here from Cameron. Sorry, let me just go back. I have a quick question to follow up on Candace's question. Are there any guidelines or best practices around integration Eloqua with multiple CRM systems, multiple instances of Salesforce? Oh, Cameron, yes, I would strongly encourage you, Cameron, to reach out, or we have your details. I'll get Jason to contact you on that. We've been down that path with a couple of clients over the years, and there are some considerations to think through in that process, but we have done it and would be happy to talk you through that in a little bit more detail. So Jason, I'll leave that one with you if that's okay, to get back to Cameron. Okay, let's look at the next question. How are we doing for time? Oops, okay, let's go. All right, reporting and linked files. So Luke from Australia asked the question, can you report on how many times a linked file from a file in storage was downloaded on an email that was sent? Okay, so a few variables there in your question, Luke. A few ways you can look at it. You might want to look at understanding how many times a linked file was downloaded for all time, so for as long as that file has been available in Eloqua. However, your question implies, I think what you're wanting to look at is reporting on that particular file in the context of a campaign, which would contain that particular email. So now we're looking at a date parameter difference. So a couple of ways. So generally speaking, you'll provide people with access to a PDF or other file, whatever the file is, via form submission. So one of the easiest ways to do that would be to view the form submission data from within the actual design editor itself. So for instance, if we jump into Eloqua and go to the form area, let's have a look at this one. So this is an older form, but over here in the actions area of the platform, you can see view submission data. And when you go to view submission data, there you can see everybody that has actually submitted the form. My only alarm, not alarm bell, it's a bit dramatic. My caution to you there when you view that information, Luke, is that it's not unique. So if somebody has submitted that form 5 times, you'll see them as 5 separate entries within that particular form. So a smarter way to do it is to use shared lists as well. So in this particular example, if I zoom in a little bit there for you, this particular one is the Marketing Automation Simplified Lead Nurture white paper. And what we're doing is we're dropping it into a shared list. So what you would probably want to do is create a shared list that match the name exactly. So then you would have a unique number, because remember, a shared list contains a unique number of individuals. It doesn't put in duplicates. So if John submits the form 5 times, that's great. He'll appear 5 times in view submission data, again from the actions menu. However, by dropping everybody into that shared list, you'll then have a unique list of people. That's one way. Now, the other way is to access the form submission overview insight report. So you'll find information contained to give you a bit more detail about that in the Help Center. If you go to the Help Center and look at view form submission overview report, it'll give you details, etc. And then it also shows you an example of what that report actually looks like. So that'll give you the numbers, etc. Because your question was very much about the numbers. And so you'll be able to see those numbers there across multiple forms for over a period of time. Now, another way to do it there are multiple ways to do things, is first of all, locate the PDF that again, I'm saying PDF, but any file you have in storage, locate that file, double click on it. And then what you're looking for is the actual URL and not the tracked URL. So the actual URL that you can see highlighted there. So this is what I do sometimes when I'm just trying to get a quick understanding of how something or how often it's being regulated or accessed. So when Eloqua looks at a PDF or a file that has been downloaded, it views that as a website because in fact it does have its own unique page, and you can take that URL that we just accessed, paste it into your browser, and whatever you've got there will appear in the browser. So it's a web page or a website, for want of a better description. Now you can paste that URL directly in here, or you can use a keyword within the URL to try and identify it. Now, the one thing that I'd encourage you to do, and I couldn't capture this in the screenshot because it kept disappearing, but what you can't see here, for instance, is this a web page or is it a file? Now, the giveaway is the URL. You can see here img.en25. Now, that may differ slightly for you, but I think the 25 is the same. But the enablement, and marketing cube, they're actually web pages, like landing pages within Eloqua. However, the first one is a file. Now, if you actually hover over that, now this is a still image, so nothing's going to happen. But if you hover over that, Eloqua will then show you the full URL, and you can then see at the end of that URL, PDF or Excel or PowerPoint or whatever it is that you're hiding. What's hiding? You're not hiding anything. You're trying to access. So you could then download that information, adjust the date parameters to suit the campaign, or you could add another filter here, which is the email sent. So come over here, search for email sent, for instance. So we're very specific, sent this email and access this particular URL, being the file that you had in storage. And then once you save that, you can click on View Contacts, and again, you'll see those people, and you'll see those people as a unique list. So hopefully that answers that question. Now, the other question Luke had was, is there an option to view heat maps of emails sent? Yes, there is. If you're searching, though, you won't find it using the word heat map. Eloqua refers to it as a click map, so no big deal. The information is available once the email has been sent as part of a campaign, and people have had a chance to access it. I find the easiest and the quickest way to access that report is to come into the actual email editor itself. You can see here, this is an active campaign. This is the invitation that you would have received, actually. So click on the operational reports area, so the blue icon here at the top of the screen, come to dashboards, click on email performance, and then from email performance, you'll arrive at this screen. And what you're looking for is the click map. So once you click on click map, you'll have this page load. And so essentially what it's going to do now is provide you with some little green dots with numbers in them. If you hover over those numbers or those percentages, it will then give you a number as well. And that works through the entire email. So you can start to get a bit of a feel for where people are actually clicking and what they're actually doing. Okay, next one from Sankara Krishnan in India. So hello. Is there a way to prevent spam bots submitting on Eloqua forms? Well, isn't that the goal of every marketer? And similar question, again, from India, from Krishna. How can we intercept our website from spam entry? Let us know something we can implement, like Google reCAPTCHA with an Eloqua form. So answers to your question, absolutely. So yes, reCAPTCHA is doable. With the coding, etc., that is required, that's an easier exercise as of today to perform using the Eloqua landing page source editor. So it becomes a combination of your form on the Eloqua landing page and a little bit of HTML magic to bring in Google's reCAPTCHA functionality to that particular page. So that's one way to do it. Now, that probably takes about a day or so to set up, so there's some time involved in doing that. And now once you've set it up, you could then use it largely as a template. So it's not as though it's going to take you an hour every single time to do it. It would just be getting it set up, which would then deliver a template solution that you could use moving forward. Now, other options that require less time, and then now it sort of comes down to customer experience, right? What's the front end experience for me as a user? So one thing that I've done, which is pretty basic, is ask a mathematical question. We don't seem to get hit a lot, which is nice, by bots, but obviously some people do. So a mathematical question is literally, I just ask the question on the form. So I might ask first name, last name, company name, email address, obviously. And then I'll ask the question 5 plus 5 equals, and then they're required to put the answer into the field. I can use the configuration of the form to only allow the response of 10 to be in that particular field. From a CX point of view, the only downside there is it becomes another question that you have to put onto the form. So it'd be much nicer to not have to ask another question, or, you know, with a reCAPTCHA, for example, having people identify all of the pussycats in a particular photograph, or all the bridges or the cars or whatever it is that Google wants you to try and click on in their little 9-grid exercise. Or at minimum, potentially, you know, click the button that says I'm a human, which is probably the more elegant out of those solutions. However, the team at Marketing Cube have developed what we like to call a honeypot. Now, if you think about a honeypot is all about trapping people. In this case, we're not looking to trap your customers, we're looking to trap the bots. So this is a solution that has been developed by our team here at Marketing Cube. It's pretty elegant, it's pretty simple, and would be happy to share that with you, but I'd encourage you to reach out to Jason or to contact the support team. So support@marketingcube.com.au, and they can assist you with that one. So that one is, yeah, it's a good solution. It's smarter than my mathematical questions, that's for sure. All right. In relation to update information for release 19D, which is due in November, at this stage, we have nothing in top liners. So this, unfortunately, is a little bit of a repeat. So for those of you that perhaps weren't with us last month, these are just some of the highlights for what happened in August. So hopefully you're experiencing some of those changes and enjoying those at the moment. In-app guidance is probably the big one, which was added to forms and campaign canvas. We talked about that a little bit earlier this morning. The email search enhancements, are you noticing now that you can search by email subject line, and that in the email, when you're looking and searching for various emails, subject line is now one of the columns, so you can see that, which is also good because it's an alarm bell for when you haven't configured the subject line of an email. So that's a nice byproduct of that enhancement. The other big news, which I was tremendously excited about with that last release, is the default campaign end date is no longer 1 year and is now 3 months. Now that will dramatically improve reporting for those of you who choose not to identify an end date and just simply run with the default. It's still not perfect. The best solution is for you to identify a custom date and apply the real end date of the campaign, but this will be much better, will help with reporting. The form design editor, just so you're aware, the dependencies, this can be quite helpful. If you've got a form that is being used in multiple locations, you can now see that information under the dependencies link, and you'll see this pop-up window appears. So just a nice handy thing to remember when it becomes important. And then just to remind you, in relation to browser usage, you'll know that the Microsoft Internet Explorer logo doesn't exist anywhere on this screen. So would strongly encourage you to, where possible, to be using either Chrome or Firefox to access Eloqua for the best possible experience. Then 19D, I'm afraid that's all I have. That's it. And it's 11:59, it's now 12 p.m. So game over. We would normally talk about Q&A, but the whole session has been Q&A today. So thank you so much for joining us. If you have any other questions, please let me know. Otherwise, have a great week, and we will see you next month. Thanks again, everybody.